Well, getting your dream project isn't quite all that it's cracked up to be, is it? Bojack Horseman, Season 2. I'm not really going to have a spoiler free version of this. I'm just kind of going to get right into it. For folks who have seen the show but don't remember what happened in which season, there's a number of major things that happen this season. I mean, there's stuff like Todd going to work for Mr. Peanut Butter and having a lot of the two of them together having a lot of really terrible ideas. That's a very side plot, but that's kind of what they're up to for a lot of this. Bojack starts filming Secretariat, which is his dream role, this film project. And this covers a lot of the ups and downs of that, with him, initially just kind of almost immediately falling on his face and not being able to bring a sincerity to the performance because he spent, 9 seasons being big and jokey and over the top, and doesn't really know how to bring it down. But he finds his footing on that, but then the studio starts to interfere. He and the director try and get a shot that they want that the studio said they won't pay to put in. They try and get it guerrilla style because they were told to not do that. The director then gets fired. A bit more of a journeyman style director is brought in to just finish it, saying the whole way, "Oh, we'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post." And Bojack is kind of looking at the continued dissolution, just complete dissolving of this dream project and what he thought would give his life purpose and value, to himself, if nobody else. And then there's Diane, who, boy, so initially, I'm not taking them off in frustration. There was a spot on them. I know some people like track, oh no, she took the glasses off. She's real annoyed. No, I'm just cleaning them. With Diane, initially, like she's brought onto the film project because in theory, she knows a lot about Secretariat and can be used as a consultant. But even with the director who was more artistically inclined, the one who started it and got fired, she didn't have any use for Diane. So Diane is just kind of hanging around, and she initially turned down this opportunity to go to this war-torn country and help, write a book about this philanthropist who was out there. And she's putting that off in order to do this. So she already feels like she made a massive mistake. Then she leaves and goes to this war-torn country to immediately discover that this philanthropist is just a rich jackass who's high on himself, and quickly gets disillusioned with that. So she has a little bit of a crisis over the fact that she tried to have her cake and eat it too, and ended up having a terrible looking cake that tasted like trash because she initially stayed for the thing that was theoretically better for her career in LA. It was soul crushing. She goes over to do the thing that she was more invested in doing, and that crushes her in a different way. So she's just getting 1-2 punched by reality. And she comes back and does not tell Mr. Peanut Butter, who, reminder at this point, is her husband, that she's back. She just crashes at Bojack's and doesn't leave the house, and kind of devolves into just gremlin behavior, like not getting dressed, just going around in the bathrobe, getting drunk, passing out, and that's kind of it. She's kind of being Bojack on his worst days. And sort of the big culmination of a lot of this is the last 2 episodes. And I have been warned in the comments that penultimate episodes of these seasons have a tendency to be the big gut punches. I'm not sure I'd call it a gut punch, but it was a big kind of, oh, God, you really are messed up. Sort of sink in on Bojack himself, because he goes to New Mexico to see Charlotte, who is someone who he met 30 years ago, and he'd always remembered, and it felt like he had a real genuine connection with her. And like he's basically latched onto somebody that he knew from the last period in his life where he felt like he was even slightly happy. And so he goes and finds her in New Mexico, only to immediately find out that she's married with 2 kids. Kyle and the kids. So you can imagine that this leads to, yes, some awkwardness, some silly humor. He tries to cover for why he's there by claiming he's there for a boat show in landlocked New Mexico. And then to try and sell his lie, he actually buys a boat. And the boat ends up parked in Charlotte's driveway, and he stays there for months. Now, he hasn't finished shooting the movie, so he's in violation of his contract. He actually smashes his phone and won't return calls from Princess Carolyn. Oh, thank goodness. They finally wrapped up the Vincent adult man story with Princess Carolyn. That was a one-note joke that they kept going way too long. Like, I suppose part of me can admire the commitment to the bit, but I'm not sure what actually was yielded by that. I don't know what benefit they got out of stretching that joke that far. But yet, she's trying to figure out what to do with her career. She has a coworker who wants her to go in and partner with him on a brand new agency, which is its own massive gamble. Princess Carolyn is a character who I enjoy for her presence in terms of like the workaholic energy that she brings in is a nice contrast to, say, the lays about energy that you get from Bojack or Todd. So I like her presence, but she's not a character I'm super invested in at this point. So I actually had to stop and remember what it was they were doing with her this season. But thank goodness they ended the Vincent thing. Yeah, that was overdrawn. But anyway, so Bojack isn't answering, any of her calls, and he bonds with the family of a woman that he knows he can't have, but also can't seem to get over, who does not really know him. Like, Charlotte likes him well enough, but they barely knew each other before. And yeah, she's getting to know him a little bit more now, but he's also not being honest with her about why he's there. And it eventually leads to Bojack taking Penny, that's Charlotte's daughter, who is 17, to prom, which is something Charlotte knows about and that's intended like to be a whole jealousy thing, like, oh, you brought a famous celebrity to prom, and make the boy who you asked out and said no jealous, and all of that sort of ridiculousness that you think happens and doesn't. The kind of ridiculous notions cooked up by teenagers and a celebrity with Arrested Development like Bojack. And that evening goes badly. Like, Bojack buys alcohol for teenagers, which, first of all, is not only immoral. Amoral means lacking morals. No, it is immoral and improper and illegal. When Charlotte's friend passes out, Bojack wasn't even going to take her to the hospital. It was like the other friend, Pete. Oh, poor Pete. He, basically pushes them to take her to the hospital because he had another friend who had someone die of alcohol poisoning, who had passed out like this. So if it had just been left to Bojack, he wouldn't have done a thing. He just would have gone let her sleep it off. And Bojack makes Pete promise to lie that he didn't know where the alcohol came from, and that Bojack and Penny just left the dance early and he didn't know where they went. So he assists in the intoxication of teenagers. So it's not even just under 21, like 17, like maybe one of these kids is 18, but like minors, and makes one of them promise to lie about it. And then gets back to the house. And here's what I'll say. If they had Bojack be the one who initiated a kiss between him and Penny, I might have had to check out of the show. I knew it was coming. I knew that these two were going to end up kissing. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be like between the characters when it happened, but I knew it was going to happen. And if Bojack had been the one to initiate it, like he did with Diane back in season 1, I might have had to check out. He doesn't. Now, does that make everything cool? No, but even in a show that's about an asshole, that's about a jackass who makes horrible decisions over and over and over and over again. I do have my limits for how far you can push that before you hit a point where I'm like, I don't want to see you bemoaning the impacts of the things you're doing, because I think you should suffer. It didn't quite cross that line, but boy, did it dance up to it. Actually, I think you could argue it's really carefully constructed writing, the way that it does dance right up to that line. And she initiates it. He tries to, I say tries. No, he does stop her. He's like, no. But then later on, she goes to his boat and we see him tell her, go to bed, Penny, like trying to send her away. But then not too long later, we see Charlotte come onto the boat, and Penny and Bojack are in bed. Now, nothing appears to have happened yet. They're both fully dressed, but they are both physically on the bed. And Bojack has a moment, and I've started the third season now, so I can't remember if the line that I'm about to say happened in season 2 or if it happened early in season 3. But regardless, Bojack has a line after he leaves, because obviously Charlotte tells him, if you're not gone in a half hour, I'm calling the police. And if I ever see you again, I'll kill you. So rightfully, that is her response to that. And Bojack just gets the boat towed back to LA and dropped into his frickin' pool. But anyways, after all this, Bojack has a line. As I said, this might be a season 3 line. I can't remember now. But he says, I tell myself I wouldn't have done it, but I think probably I would have. That line, I think it both hurts and helps. Because, it is an indication that had Charlotte not stopped him, he might have gone through with it, which does make me feel a bit squicky. But at the same time, there's an honesty to it. Because if he'd already let things get as far as they did, at what point would he have actually stopped it? I think that's a very fair question to ask, and having him be the one who asks it doesn't diminish the importance of that question. And also having him ask that question kind of brings us back to what we're looking at when we deal with Bojack. Because Bojack's problem, at least as I'm prepared to diagnose it at this point in the show, isn't that he doesn't recognize the damage of his actions. He actually very frequently does. He will often do everything he can to avoid facing, the reality of that damage, like why he wouldn't talk to Herb for so long. But he's fully aware that the things he does cause damage, pain, wreck careers, wreck lives. He knows that, and he knows it well enough to feel bad about it, but he does not. He either doesn't have enough self-control, or he can't step out of his own sense of immediacy long enough to recognize that he's about to do one of those things that he's going to beat himself up over and regret for the rest of his life. He can recognize it in hindsight, and I think very consistently. So it's not that he's unrepentant. He is repentant, but so far at least, that does not translate into a change in behavior for whatever reason. Whether it's just a fear of that level of introspection, or whether it's a matter of just him being far too impulsive. But then again, his impulsiveness tends to only get him to say something mean in the moment. His real hurtful activities aren't necessarily impulsive. I mean, he's almost always drunk, so his impulse control is deadened. Let's be realistic about that. But they are things that, honestly, a lot like Penny, he has the opportunity to stop at multiple points. So it's not just a matter of, well, there was this one specific moment where I didn't stop it, and therefore, obviously, everything happened. No, you could have stopped this at so many points, and you didn't. And with Penny, you might not have if Charlotte hadn't come through that door. I am expecting... I was going to say either Charlotte or Penny to show up again. My money's on Penny. My money is that Penny shows up again once she turns 18 and, like, has her own car and can get out of the house. I think she's going to show up again. And I'll be very curious to see how Bojack responds if and when that happens. It's really hard. It's really hard to depict a character like this and not have it, set off that thing that I said it almost did, which just makes me go, nope, I don't care. I don't want to hear your story. I hate you. And it hasn't. And I think that it's presenting a guy and the kind of stuff he's willing to do or willing to look the other way on. It is a very delicate dance because it is dancing right up to the line. And also in terms of pacing, because if like this had been pulled in season 1, I might have checked out. But obviously 2 seasons in, I am kind of invested in the guy. Not in a I like you way, but in a I can see enough points of empathy with your story that I am invested in seeing what happens. But yeah, no, you are not a good guy. So yeah, this shows something. And of course, on top of that, it is still funny. I'm not going to pretend it's not still funny. But boy, it's starting to go some places. Bojack Horseman, Season 2. What'd you think of this one? And whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Those all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. What I really want you to... Nope, wrong sign off. We take a relaxed attitude around here. So just come on back next time you need a break. Now to thank my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Ruben Lupula, Daphne Matthews, Kay Johnston, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casper, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Stephen Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Magdalena, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twilord, Tracy Scrabbit, Claire Wright, Pal Baraba Joggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Additionally, I'd like to thank from the lower tiers of support, John Dent, Erez87, and Quark 12,000. But you guys might like to see Archie this month. Everybody loves you. How could you not love